In the bustling town of Amaku, there was one name that everyone knew, Adama Wasa. She wasn't just any businesswoman, she was the businesswoman. Tall, dark, thick, and radiating an aura of beauty and confidence, Adama's mere presence commanded attention. Her salon had become the town's go-to spot for women seeking luscious, high-quality wigs. They traveled from far and wide, eager to get their hair done at her salon, leaving with gossip about her unparalleled skills and her rising influence. But despite her success, Adama's heart burned with an insatiable hunger. The numbers in her bank account never seemed to match the grand expectations she had set for herself. Popularity? Sure. Success? Absolutely. But Adama wanted more, much more. She dreamed of becoming richer than any of her competitors, of opening multiple stores in major cities, of building an empire that spanned continents. But as her fame grew, so did her costs. The prices of raw hair from her suppliers soared, and Adama quickly realized that without finding cheaper alternatives, her business would never grow the way she envisioned. It was then that a close friend, Goli, who sold high-end shoes, whispered in her ear about cheaper sources from China. Adama, always eager for a solution, made arrangements and flew there, hoping to find suppliers who could offer top-quality hair at bargain prices. Yet, despite visiting several factories and suppliers, the prices remained too high. Her greed clouded her judgment, even the best deals weren't good enough. She wanted more, she needed more. When she returned home, feeling defeated, she knew she had to find another way. Then, one evening, as she was closing up her salon, Goli visited her again, dropping an unusual suggestion. "There's someone I know you should meet," he said, his smile knowing. "A juju man." "A juju man?" Adama raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. "He helped me with my shoe business when things were tough," Goli continued. "He can help you too. He knows things, Adama. Things you wouldn't believe." At first, Adama scoffed. She wasn't one to dabble in traditional methods, let alone visit a juju man. But as the days passed, the weight of her financial stress grew unbearable, and the idea, however strange, began to linger in her mind. One fateful night, desperate and eager for a solution, Adama decided to visit the juju man. Deep in the heart of Amaku, beyond the market and past the swamps, stood the shrine of Okuku, a renowned juju man feared and respected by the townsfolk for his uncanny ability to manipulate the unseen forces of the world. Adama approached, her heart racing with anticipation and dread. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the low hum of chanting filled the space. There, seated behind a curtain of beads, was Okuku. His long white beard gleamed in the dim light, and his eyes sparkled with ancient knowledge. "So, you seek cheaper hair," he said, his voice steady, as though he had already read her mind. "Yes," Adama whispered, her voice barely audible, a flicker of hope dancing in her eyes. Okuku gestured for her to sit. Without wasting time, he explained the solution. He spoke of a river goddess, a mermaid who lived in a sacred river far from Amaku. The mermaid, Okuku said, granted favors to those who honored her with monthly gifts of fruits. In return, she would provide something no one else in the world could, a never-ending supply of wigs, sourced directly from the goddess's hair. Adama's heart raced. The idea of an endless supply of wigs, soft and luscious, was too good to be true. But Okuku's reputation was legendary, and Adama knew better than to doubt his words. "All you need to do," Okuku warned, his tone serious, "is bring fruit to the river every month. Don't get greedy. The goddess is generous, but she doesn't take kindly to those who break their promises." Adama left the shrine with a mix of excitement and fear. The promise of boundless success lay before her. The next morning, she gathered a basket of fruits and made her way to the river. The air was still when she arrived, the water calm and unruffled. She placed the fruits on the shore and waited. Hours passed, and nothing happened. But as dusk began to settle, the water stirred. From the depths, a mermaid emerged, her hair long, flowing, and iridescent under the moonlight. "You bring gifts for me?" the mermaid asked, her voice as smooth as the river's surface. "Yes," Adama stammered, overwhelmed by the beauty of the creature before her. The mermaid nodded, her expression approving. "As agreed, I will send you the gifts, the wigs you desire. But remember, the fruits must be brought every month without fail." Adama quickly agreed, too mesmerized by the promise of success to fully comprehend the weight of the mermaid's words. The next morning, Adama found a pile of wigs on the river's edge, soft, luscious, and unlike anything she had ever seen. Excited, she rushed back to her salon, eager to sell them. By the end of the week, the wigs were gone, and her customers were in awe. Word spread quickly, and her business boomed. For the first time, she was making more money than she had ever imagined. But as the months passed, Adama's greed grew. The wigs kept coming, but the monthly offering of fruit began to feel like a burden. Why keep bringing so many fruits? She wondered. The wigs were already arriving. She convinced herself the mermaid wouldn't miss a few. So, one month, she reduced the offering. The wigs still appeared. Emboldened, Adama brought even fewer fruits the following month. Then, she stopped bringing fruit altogether. Yet, the wigs kept coming, fresh and beautiful as ever. Adama convinced herself that the mermaid had forgotten about their agreement. She was too important now, too powerful. She didn't need to answer to some mystical creature. But the mermaid hadn't forgotten. One night, as Adama lay in bed, satisfied with her success, a cold breeze swept through the room. She stirred, but didn't wake up until she heard a soft voice whisper from the shadows. At the foot of her bed stood the mermaid, her voice filled with menace. "You have broken our agreement," she said. "I warned you." Adama tried to speak, but fear paralyzed her. "I gave you wigs made from my own hair," the mermaid continued, her voice rising. "And you repaid me with greed. Now you'll pay." With that, the mermaid vanished, leaving Adama trembling in the darkness. She tried to convince herself it was a nightmare, but the fear gnawed at her. The next morning, Adama rushed to the river, her basket overflowing with fruits, hoping to appease the goddess. But when she arrived, the river was still. No wigs, no mermaid, only silence. Over the following weeks, strange things began to happen. Her customers, the ones who had bought the wigs, started falling ill. It began with dizziness and fainting spells, but soon more serious symptoms emerged. Their hair began to fall out in clumps, and some slipped into mysterious comas. Panic calls flooded Adama's phone, but she didn't know what to say. Deep down, she knew the truth. The mermaid's curse had begun to spread. One by one, the women who had worn her wigs began to suffer the consequences of breaking a sacred promise. The bodies were discovered, their long strands of wet hair twisted around their necks. The town was thrown into chaos, a frenzy of whispers and rumors that quickly spiraled out of control. What was the source of these strange wigs? Who was behind the terror? Adama became the center of suspicion. Her once thriving business, now a ghostly shadow of its former self, had become a place haunted by the whispers of a curse, desperate to stop the carnage it had unleashed. In her desperation, Adama sought out the Uku shrine, praying for a solution. She stood before the Juju man, but his response was cold, his voice firm as he shook his head. "You have offended the river goddess. There is nothing left. Nowhere to turn." With those final words, the weight of her fate pressed down upon her. Adama fled Omaku, abandoning her salon, the life she had built, and everything she had ever known. But the mermaid was relentless, its wrath inescapable. No matter where Adama ran, the shadow of greed followed her. She could hear the eerie whispers at night, feel the cold brush of watery hair against her skin. Adama's name became synonymous with disaster. The once envied businesswoman, the woman who had everything within her grasp, was now a fugitive, hunted by the very nightmare she had unleashed. She couldn't outrun the mermaid's rage forever. But still, she tried. Her life became a web of secrecy, each day spent hiding in dingy motels or remote villages, praying that the mermaid wouldn't find her. Each night was a torment, her sleep filled with vivid nightmares, her customers' faces twisted in agony, their hair tightening around their necks, dragging them into the cold, watery depths. She constantly looked over her shoulder, dreading the feel of a cold, wet hand reaching for her in the darkness. And as days turned into weeks, Adama tried to start anew. She found a small coastal village, far from Omaku, and kept her head down, working odd jobs at local shops, her identity a carefully guarded secret. But still, she couldn't shake the feeling that the curse had not yet run its course. The mermaid's vengeance was far from finished. News reached her that more of her former customers had succumbed to the curse. Omaku was in a state of panic. Wigs were being burned in fear, but the damage had already been done. The mermaid was still hunting. One rainy night, as Adama sat in the small room she had rented, she heard a faint tapping at the window. At first, she dismissed it as the wind. But the tapping grew louder, more insistent. Her heart pounded as she approached the window. When she pulled back the curtain, she was met with the horrifying sight of a tangled strand of wet hair, pressed against the glass. Her stomach churned with fear. "Not again," she whispered, backing away from the window. But it was too late. The mermaid had grown tired of waiting. What had started as a simple trade, wigs in exchange for fruits, had spiraled into something far darker, something the mermaid could not forgive. The goddess had spent centuries guarding the secrets of the river and her hair, and now she had been tricked. Adama had to pay. And the mermaid would not rest until every woman who had touched her hair had paid the ultimate price. One by one, the mermaid hunted the women who had purchased the cursed wigs. The disaster Adama had unleashed had now extended to her customers. Night after night, they were haunted by dreams of drowning, their hair tightening, pulling them under the water. It wasn't just the women of Omaku who were affected, some had traveled far and wide to buy Adama's wigs, and the curse followed them too. At first, the deaths seemed like strange coincidences, drownings, unexplained hair loss. But soon, the pattern became undeniable. Each victim had one thing in common: they had all worn Adama's wigs. Panic spread. Women who had once praised her products now burned them, terrified that it would stop the curse. But it was already too late. The mermaid's wrath was unstoppable. As the hunt grew more vicious, Adama knew her time was running out. She could feel the curse tightening around her, squeezing the life out of her. The guilt of so many lost lives weighed heavily on her chest. But she wasn't ready to face the mermaid, not yet. In desperation, she searched for a way to escape. She remembered whispers of a powerful priestess who lived deep in a remote forest, far from civilization. This priestess was said to have a connection with spirits and gods older than the mermaid herself. If anyone could help, it was her. But reaching the priestess wouldn't be easy. The journey would be perilous, and Adama knew the mermaid was closing in. Yet, with no other options left, she packed the few belongings she had and set off into the night, the rain soaking her clothes, the cold gnawing at her bones. She pressed on, determined to find the priestess. Days passed as Adama traversed the dense forest. Her food supply dwindled, exhaustion creeping into her bones. But she finally arrived at a hidden village, a place like no other she had seen. The people here were quiet, reserved, their eyes filled with knowledge beyond her understanding. The priestess, an old woman with deep brown skin and eyes that shimmered like moonlight, welcomed her with a knowing smile. "I know why you've come," she said softly. "The mermaid is haunting you." Adama nodded, too weary to speak. "You cannot hide forever," the priestess continued. "The river goddess is relentless. She will stop at nothing to reclaim what she has lost." Tears welled up in Adama's eyes. "Please," she begged. "Help me. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted to save my business." The priestess sighed deeply, her gaze softening. "Greed blinds the eyes, my child. But there may be a way forward, a way to end this." Adama's heart skipped a beat. Hope flared inside her. "What do I have to do?" she asked, desperate. The priestess's voice lowered. "There is a ritual, but it is not without risk. You must return to the river, where the mermaid dwells, and face her. Offer her not just fruits, but a piece of your soul. Only then will she be appeased." Adama recoiled. "Her soul?" The priestess nodded. "It is the only way to break the curse. If you do not face her, the death will continue. Eventually, she will come for you." Adama stood there, stunned. Could she truly give up a piece of her soul to end this nightmare? Was there another way? The weight of her choices pressed down on her, and for the first time, she realized the true cost of her greed. As night fell, Adama stood at the edge of the forest, staring out at the darkened trees. Somewhere, out there, the mermaid waited, her anger growing with each passing day. The death of Adama's customers would not stop until the curse was lifted. Adama knew what she had to do. With the priestess's words echoing in her mind, she began her journey back to the river. Her heart was heavy, knowing that this might be the last journey she ever made.